400 years ago, a single flower bulb could cost as much as a house, not a field of them. 1. A flower that would wilt in a week.
It sounds insane, but it really happened in the first financial bubble ever recorded, and the very same mistake still repeats today, under different names.
Things you've never seen, now revealed.
This is money in detail.
In 1637, in Holland, a man could hand over a bulb, a single flower bulb, and receive in return a beautiful canal house, or 10 years of a skilled worker's wages, or a farm, for one bulb, of a tulip, a flower that blooms for about a week and then dies. It is one of the most bizarre and irrational things that ever happened in the history of money, and yet it really happened in one of the richest and most sophisticated nations on earth at the time. It became known as tulip mania, and it is considered, to this day, the first financial bubble ever recorded. A collective fever that made ordinary men rich and then ruined them, sometimes on the very same day. And the most unsettling part is that the mistake behind this madness is the exact same one still costing people fortunes today.
To understand how a flower came to be worth all of this, we need to go back to 17th century Holland. It was the Dutch Golden Age. The Netherlands was the greatest commercial power in the world, the richest country, full of prosperous merchants. And it was during this era that a new, exotic flower arrived there, all the way from the Ottoman Empire, the tulip. At first, the tulip was simply a status symbol. The wealthy wanted the rarest, most beautiful ones in their gardens. The most valuable were those with striped petals and unique patterns, almost like living works of art. And then, little by little, something dangerous began to happen. People stopped buying tulips to plant and admire them, and started buying them only to resell them at a higher price.
And that's when things spiraled completely out of control. A speculative market sprang up around tulip bulbs, something the world had never seen before. Bulb contracts changed hands several times in a single day. The tulip became the fourth largest export product in all of Holland, a flower. And the prices climbed at an absurd speed. At the peak of the fever, between late 1636 and early 1637, the rarest bulbs rose 12 times in price. The most expensive receipts historians have found were for 5,000 guilders for a single bulb, and 5,000 guilders, back then, was the price of a fine house. A tulip bulb could be worth 10 years of a craftsman's labor. There was even an entire 12-acre farm traded for one single rare bulb.
And now comes the most unbelievable part of this whole story. People were buying and selling bulbs that hadn't even flowered yet. They were buying the promise of the flower, a contract on paper, betting on what that tulip would look like once it bloomed. Many bought on credit, going into debt to buy more tulips than they could afford, certain that the price would only ever go up. No one stopped to think that they were staking their entire lives on a bit of greenery, on a flower that lasts a week. Everyone was sure of one thing: the price of tulips would never stop rising. And it is exactly that thought, that phrase, "this time it goes up forever," that is the trademark of every financial bubble that has ever existed.
And like every bubble, this one too had an inevitable fate. It was going to burst. And when it burst, it happened so fast and so brutally that it became a legend. We'll get to that exact day in a second. But first, there's something you need to know. Part of this story, the way it's still told today, is an exaggeration. And the real truth is even more interesting than the legend.
The collapse happened in February 1637, and it came almost overnight. At a routine auction in the city of Haarlem, something simple and devastating happened. The buyers didn't show up. They simply didn't come. And in that instant, something broke in everyone's mind at the same time. Confidence evaporated. People suddenly asked themselves, "Wait, why am I paying a fortune for a flower?" And within a matter of days, the price of bulbs plummeted by as much as 95%. Bulbs that had been worth the price of a house became, from one moment to the next, almost worthless. Those who had bought on credit were left with contracts worth nothing and enormous debts to repay. Many who had grown rich on paper went genuinely bankrupt.
And here is where most versions of this story exaggerate quite a bit. And I want to tell you the truth, because it's more honest. Over the centuries, writers turned tulip mania into a national tragedy. with tales of people throwing themselves into the canals in despair and the entire Dutch economy being destroyed. It's a dramatic, gripping story. But when a historian named Goldgar went to research the actual records, she discovered that much of it was invented or inflated. The house-priced sums were the exception. Rare cases. She only found 37 people who paid truly outrageous prices. And, more importantly, the Dutch economy was not ruined. The country remained the greatest power in the world. There was no wave of suicides. It was a real bubble, but not the apocalypse the legend describes.
But, and here is the brilliant point, the fact that it wasn't an apocalypse does not make the story any less important. Quite the opposite. Because what tulip mania revealed, for the first time in recorded history, was a pattern of human behavior that repeats, without fail, right up to today. The pattern of the bubble. It always works the same way. The price of something starts to rise. People see others making money and become afraid of missing out. So they start buying, not because the thing has real value, but only because they think they'll resell it for more. That pushes the price even higher, which attracts more people, and it becomes a snowball, until the day confidence breaks and everyone tries to sell at the same time. And then there are no buyers left, and the price collapses.
And that is why the word tulip mania became, forever, the nickname for any financial bubble, because this same pattern, this same psychology, appeared again and again and again. It appeared in the dot-com bubble, back in the year 2000, when companies that made no profit at all were worth billions. It appeared in the housing bubble that caused the 2008 crisis, and it appears from time to time in waves of cryptocurrencies and those digital tokens. The names change, the technology changes, the asset changes. One moment it's a flower, the next it's a stock, the next it's a digital coin, but the human being behind it is always the same greed, the same fear of missing out, the same certainty that this time it's different. 400 years have passed, and we keep falling into the same tulip trap.
So the lesson that a simple Dutch flower left us 4 centuries ago is one of the most valuable in all of finance. When you see the price of something rising too fast, and everyone around you is buying out of fear of missing the opportunity, and no one can quite explain to you where the real value comes from, stop. Breathe. Remember the tulip. Because the price of something can detach completely from reality when enough people believe the same fantasy at the same time. But reality, sooner or later, always comes back to collect. The tulip was not worth a house. It never was. People only believed it was until the day they stopped believing. And understanding that is the difference between the person who protects themselves and the one who goes broke. And that is why we look at finance and the stories behind it, in detail.
Now tell me in the comments, have you ever watched a bubble like this happen in your own time? A crypto, a stock, a property that everyone swore would only go up? Write it down. I read them all. If this video made you think, leave a like, subscribe, and share it with that friend who gets excited about an opportunity you can't miss. You might just protect them. And don't miss the next episode, with another incredible story from the world of money that sounds like a lie, but is pure truth. See you there, here on Money in Deep.